Hi, I'm Nate, 34, and last Saturday, I finally told my in-laws they were dead to us, right after they lit birthday candles, for the wrong woman. I'll be honest, I never liked my wife's parents. But I kept it civil for her sake. We moved across the country after we got married, had a beautiful daughter named Ivy, and started our little life in peace. But the peace shattered the moment the in-laws decided to reconnect and moved nearby. That's when the weird comparison started. They couldn't go 5 minutes without bringing up her. You know, Cassandra used to make this exact casserole, but better. Cassandra kept the house so tidy. Oh, Cassandra was thinner even after her second pregnancy. Cassandra this, Cassandra that. Cassandra, their precious golden ex-daughter-in-law who dumped my brother-in-law after sleeping with her boss. The first time they called Ivy a handful. I let it slide. Second time, I corrected them. She's not difficult. She's 3. The third time, my wife snapped. Her mom had leaned over at dinner and whispered, "Don't worry. Some kids just grow out of being burdens." That word, burden, hung in the air like a slap. Ivy was right there, playing with her stuffed raccoon. I saw my wife blink back tears while smiling politely. I squeezed her knee under the table. We didn't confront them then. We should have. But the last straw? That was the cake. They invited us over for what was supposed to be my wife's birthday dinner. Just immediate family, they said. Just love and celebration. I had a bad feeling, but I hoped for the best. We walked in, Ivy clutching her handmade card, and everything seemed okay. Balloons, a roast, even a cheesy birthday playlist humming from Alexa. Then they brought out the cake. Big, frosted, pink and gold, with curly script that read, "Happy birthday, Cassandra!" My wife stared at it like it had slapped her. Her mother blinked then said, "Oh no! The bakery must have mixed up the order." What a funny coincidence, huh? Funny. Sure. Except her mom used to order Cassandra's cakes from that same bakery. My wife hadn't seen Cassandra in over a decade, and still, her ghost haunted this table. Ivy asked, "Daddy, who's Cassandra?" I kissed her forehead and stood up. "All right," I said calmly. "We're done here." And we were. My wife didn't say a word. Not when I took Ivy's hand. Not when I grabbed her coat. Not even when her mother started fake laughing, going, "Don't be so sensitive. It's just a cake. You know how names can get mixed up." I turned back just long enough to say, "She's not Cassandra. She's your daughter. Maybe you should start treating her like it." And we walked out. I thought that would be it. I thought maybe, just maybe, a cold silence from us would finally make them reflect. Nope. 2 hours later, my wife's phone buzzed with a message from her dad. "Grow up. You're lucky we even did anything." Cassandra would have laughed. And Ivy really needs to learn some manners. That was the moment my wife lost it. She stared at the message, then at me, then just screamed into a pillow so hard it muffled the words. I held her. Ivy was already asleep, but I could feel her pain even through her little princess blanket curled up beside us on the couch. My wife, Janelle, doesn't cry easily. But that night she shook. "It's like I don't exist to them," she whispered. "Like I'm just filling in until Cassandra magically shows back up." I wanted to burn their whole fake birthday setup to the ground. Instead, I poured her a drink, kissed her forehead, and told her, "Let's hit back where it hurts." Silence. The next morning, we blocked them. Both of us. On everything. No explanation. No warning. Just gone. 2 days later, her mom showed up on our doorstep. I was home alone with Ivy. She didn't even say hello. Just launched into a speech through the screen door. "You can't keep her from us. We're family. I don't care what you're upset about, this isn't about you, it's about us having a relationship with our granddaughter." I stared at her like she'd grown 3 heads. I said, "You called her a burden. You compared my wife to your son's ex for 2 years straight. You slapped the wrong name on her own birthday cake. And now you want access to our daughter like you earned it?" She tried to say something else. I didn't let her. I closed the door. Then I took Ivy to the park and bought her the biggest scoop of mint chocolate chip in the city. That night, Janelle told me she had one more thing she wanted to do before we cut them out completely. Something that involved a storage box, some old letters, and a truth she never thought she'd share, not even with me. That night, while Ivy slept, Janelle brought down a heavy cardboard box from the top of our bedroom closet. I'd seen it before, plain, taped along the edges like it had been through a few moves. I always assumed it was filled with college stuff or old photo albums. She set it on the bed like it weighed more than just cardboard and paper. You ever wonder why I never talk about high school? She asked. I blinked. Honestly? I figured it wasn't that interesting. She gave a bitter smile. It was interesting. Just not in a good way. She opened the box. Inside were 3 neatly stacked journals, some worn letters in floral envelopes, a shoebox with photos, and, on top, an old satin bridesmaid dress. Pale lavender. Still in plastic. Cassandra's wedding, Janelle said. I was 17. I sat down slowly. She was my best friend. Or at least I thought she was. We met in 8th grade. She was smart, beautiful, charming, everyone adored her. Including my parents. Especially my parents. She pulled out a photo and handed it to me. Cassandra and Janelle, arms around each other, matching homecoming dresses. Only Janelle's was a bit too long, a bit too plain. The caption on the back said, 2 peas, but one's the prettier pod. Mom, smiley face. My stomach turned. She used to come over for dinner 3-4 nights a week. My mom would beam when she walked in. My dad would ask her opinion on politics, books, anything. I once told them I wanted to write a novel. Cassandra said she already had a draft. Suddenly, I was told to take notes from someone driven. Janelle's voice was steady, but flat, like she'd rehearsed this memory so many times the pain had become mechanical. They praised her grades. Her looks. Her laugh. Even her handwriting. They told me to be more like her. That if I didn't shape up, I'd get left behind. She pulled out one of the floral envelopes and passed it to me. It was from her mom. Dear Janelle. We're so proud Cassandra is getting married. Maybe being her maid of honor will finally inspire you to be less selfish. Watching someone else get their life together might teach you a thing or two about growing up. Happy graduation, Janelle said. That was my card. I sat there speechless. After she married my brother. She went on. It got worse. Suddenly, Cassandra was family. And I was. I don't even know. A side character. Then the marriage fell apart. She cheated, divorced him, and vanished. And yet they still clung to her like she was some saint who accidentally tripped on sin. And you just swallowed it? Janelle nodded. Until you. Until Ivy. She looked at me. Her eyes were glassy now. You were the first person who ever looked at me like I was enough. Not in comparison to someone. Just me. And Ivy? God. They call her a burden because they see me in her. The thought burned. But it made too much sense. They loved Cassandra because she knew how to perform, Janelle said. But Ivy? She's wild and loud and bright. She colors outside the lines. And she looks at the world like she owns it. She's free. That scares them. She took a deep breath. I think it's time I gave them back their ghost. She reached into the box and pulled out the lavender bridesmaid dress, the letters, the photos, every relic of Cassandra's shadow, and placed it all in a trash bag. Then she lit the fireplace. I watched as she fed the memories in, one by one. The satin curled first. Then the photo edges blackened and lifted. The envelope from her mom floated for a second before the flames took it. I'm done being compared to a woman who left, she whispered. And I'm done being small to make them comfortable. We didn't sleep that night. We just held Ivy between us and listened to the crackle of a fire that burned more than paper. The next morning, a new message came in. From Cassandra. Just one line. I didn't know they still used my name. I'm sorry. The message from Cassandra knocked the air out of the room. She hadn't spoken to Janelle in over 11 years. No birthdays. No check-ins. Just gone, like a puff of smoke after the divorce. But somehow she knew. My guess? The in-laws had started gossiping again. Maybe they were trying to get Cassandra back in the fold now that we'd cut them off. Janelle stared at the screen for a full minute. Should I answer? She asked. I shrugged. Depends. You want closure or more confusion? She bit her lip. Let's find out. She typed. You knew they favored you. You played into it. Why now? The reply came back almost instantly. I didn't know they used my name like that. On your cake? That's disgusting. Then another. Your mom called me last week. Said she regretted pushing me away. Offered to pay me to visit Ivy on her birthday. I said no. Janelle read it, then read it again. Her fingers trembled slightly. They're obsessed with a version of you that doesn't even exist anymore, she wrote. Trust me, I know, Cassandra replied. It messed with my head too. They made me think love had to be earned. That's why I left your brother. Janelle didn't reply after that. She just turned off her phone and exhaled, like she'd finally dropped a weight she'd been carrying since high school. I don't need her to apologize, she said. But I needed to hear she saw it. That she knew it wasn't all in my head. I nodded. So, what now? She looked at Ivy, who was on the floor drawing a lopsided rainbow with a dragon at the end. Now, she said. Now we protect her from all of this. That afternoon, we sat down and wrote a message. Together. Dear Mom and Dad. We're choosing peace over proximity. Ivy deserves love without conditions. She deserves to be herself, not someone else's second chance at raising Cassandra. Please don't contact us again. Any further messages will be blocked and forwarded to our attorney. It felt cold. It felt harsh. It also felt necessary. We printed it, signed it, and mailed it the old-fashioned way, because some endings need postage stamps, not emojis. Then we made changes. We put new locks on the door. We adjusted daycare pickup permissions. We made sure Ivy's teachers knew who wasn't allowed to visit. And then, for the first time in months, we started rebuilding our little world without anyone else's shadow hanging over us. We made pancakes shaped like hearts. We painted Ivy's room seafoam green with gold stars. Janelle started therapy. I finally finished assembling the bookshelf I'd been procrastinating on since March. It was a soft, quiet life, but it was ours. Until 3 weeks later, when we got the wedding invite. Embossed gold lettering. Tied with a silk ribbon. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Cassandra Westfield and Andrew Lynn. The kicker? Location, 432 Wild Oaks Lane. Host, Mr. and Mrs. Richard and Eliza Monroe. My wife's parents. They were hosting Cassandra's wedding. At their house. And we'd been invited like guests. Not family. Not even footnotes. Just a formality. Janelle stared at the RSVP card and then let out a laugh so sharp I almost thought she was choking. Well, she said, at least they spelled her name right this time. But she didn't throw the invite out. She put it on the fridge. Like it was a challenge. The wedding invite sat on our fridge for 2 days like a silent dare. Ivy kept calling it the shiny card. And asked if it was for a birthday. Janelle just said, no, honey. It's not for us. But she didn't take it down. I knew what was happening. That look in her eye. It was the same one she had when she decided to switch majors in college 3 semesters in. The same one she had before she quit her job and started her own business. Janelle wasn't spiraling. She was planning. On day 3, she turned to me while brushing Ivy's hair and said, I think I want to go. I blinked. To the wedding? Hosted by your parents. For Cassandra? She nodded. I need them to see I'm not broken. She said. That I'm not jealous. That I'm not scared of their precious Cassandra and her golden throne. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just sat with it. Later that night, I found her scrolling through dresses online, nothing flashy, nothing bridal competitive, but classy. Regal. Like someone who knew exactly who she was. Are we being petty? She asked. No, I said. We're being thorough. That Friday, we dropped Ivy off with my sister, who was more than happy to help after hearing the saga, and we drove to Wild Oaks Lane like we were heading into enemy territory. Janelle in a deep navy blue dress. Me in a tailored gray suit. No smiles. No nerves. Just clarity. The moment we pulled up, we knew. Her parents were out front, hands full of wine glasses, faking warmth like it was their full-time job. Her mother's eyes went wide the second she saw Janelle step out of the car. Eliza, Janelle said evenly. No. Mom. Not anymore. They hugged her like they were meeting a guest of honor. Except everyone knew it was fake. Even the caterer did a double take when he heard Eliza introduce her as our daughter, Janelle, with the same tone you'd use for a woman who once spilled wine on your rug and never apologized. Inside, the place was decked out like a southern garden fairy tale. String lights, wildflowers, a champagne wall. Cassandra stood near the back in a designer gown, holding hands with her fiancé like royalty posing for a magazine cover. She caught Janelle's eye. Something flickered in her face. Regret? Guilt? Maybe even admiration. Janelle gave her a nod. Not a smile. Just acknowledgement. She didn't come to compete. She came to exist. The ceremony was fast. Vows, rings, kiss. The usual. But it was the toast where things caught fire. Eliza stood up with her flute and tapped the glass. "We're so happy to host this beautiful day," she began. "Cassandra has always been like a daughter to us. Honestly, we thought of her as family long before the rings were exchanged." My jaw clenched. "And today, seeing all of you here, I'm just reminded of how blessed we've been to have her in our lives. Even after life took its turns, she always came back stronger. She's always had grace." Then she looked directly at Janelle. "And she's never lashed out at people who tried to love her." Silence. People shifted. Forks froze. Cassandra paled. Janelle stood up. "Thank you," she said, loud enough for the whole tent to hear. "Thank you for proving every reason why I don't bring my daughter around you. Why I stopped answering your messages. Why I stopped being small so you could feel big." She stepped forward. "I came here today to show you I wasn't afraid. But now I see you are. You're afraid of a woman who won't beg. Of a mother who protects. And of a daughter who doesn't want to be your puppet." Cassandra stepped forward. "Janelle." But Janelle held up a hand. "I wish you a beautiful marriage. I truly do. But Eliza, Richard, don't ever contact us again. You lost your chance. And no one's coming to rescue you from that." She turned, heels clicking like a metronome of freedom. I followed. The whole way out, no one stopped us. Except one person. Cassandra. She touched Janelle's arm, voice soft. "I wish I had your spine," she said. Janelle looked her right in the eye. "You still can." We drove home in silence, but it wasn't heavy. It was clean, like the air after a thunderstorm. Janelle rolled down the window and let the wind slap her face, her hair whipping around like she was shedding layers by the mile. I looked over and said, "You okay?" She smirked. "I feel like I just emotionally dropkicked my entire childhood." We laughed. The kind of laugh that comes out from somewhere deep and exhausted. The kind that says, finally. When we got home, Ivy was asleep on the couch, half covered in a blanket, with marker scribbles on her arm and the remains of a glitter crown sliding down her forehead. "She made me her royal assistant," my sister whispered, grinning from the kitchen. "Demanded I call her queen of the couch." Janelle picked Ivy up and held her like something sacred. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, her smile was real. No edge. No performance. The next morning, we got a voicemail from Richard. He sounded like a man caught between fake civility and mild panic. "You made quite the scene last night. Your mother is still upset. I suggest you apologize. Cassandra's wedding wasn't the place for personal vendettas." Janelle deleted it without hesitation. Later that week, Cassandra sent one final message. "I moved to New York. Cut ties with your parents. You were right. They don't love people. They love reflections. And when they can't control the mirror, they shatter it." She attached a photo of a small apartment, boxes stacked behind her, a cat perched on a windowsill. Underneath it, "Freedom tastes dusty but worth it." We never wrote back. Not because we were angry. Just done. We decided to start fresh in more ways than one. Ivy started pre-K at a new school, and Janelle and I began seeing a couples counselor, not because we were broken, but because we wanted to understand how to raise a daughter in a world that tried to make her shrink. We talked a lot in those sessions. About guilt, about boundaries, about how trauma doesn't always scream, it whispers through generations until someone finally says enough. One night, Janelle came to me with a notebook. "I've been writing," she said. "About all of it. The comparisons. The Cassandra thing. My parents. Ivy." She handed it to me. First page said, "Breaking the mold." "I want her to know," she said softly. "I want Ivy to read this one day and know it wasn't her fault. That we fought for her. That she was never a burden." I read the whole thing in one sitting. And when I looked up, she was already asleep beside me, curled around our daughter, the two of them breathing in tandem. And then came Ivy's birthday. She turned 4. Obsessed with dragons and clouds and pancakes shaped like animals. We rented out the back patio of her favorite breakfast place. Just a few kids from school, some family from my side, and one tiny magician who couldn't quite shuffle cards but made up for it in balloon sword duels. When it came time for the cake, I carried it out myself. Blue icing. White wings. A flying dragon holding a banner in its teeth. Happy birthday, Ivy, it said. You are magic. Janelle teared up. Ivy gasped like someone had delivered her soul in frosting. She hugged me like her little arms could anchor the whole world. There was no drama. No comparisons. No ghosts. Just sugar, giggles, and a crown of pink plastic. But as I was gathering the plates, a woman approached me. Late 40s, well-dressed, unfamiliar. Sorry, she said. I had to say something. I used to know your in-laws. Richard and Eliza Monroe? My smile froze. I'm not sure what to say to that, I replied carefully. She nodded. They used to talk about their perfect daughter-in-law. Cassandra, right? Yeah. She tilted her head. Funny. They never mentioned Janelle. Not surprising, I said. Well, she smiled. They talk about her now. Not kindly. But always with fear. That usually means she finally got free. She handed me her card and left. On the back was scribbled, "Keep protecting your girls. The world needs more of you." I stood there for a second, holding that card. Then I looked over at Ivy, covered in cake, sword fighting a balloon tiger, and Janelle, laughing on the floor. And I thought, yeah? We're doing just fine. We didn't hear from Richard and Eliza again. Not after the voicemail. Not after the wedding. It was like once Janelle refused to play their game, they ran out of pieces to move. No more digs disguised as advice. No more accidental name mix-ups. No more weaponized nostalgia pretending to be love. Just silence. Which, after everything, was the best sound in the world. 3 months later, on a rainy Thursday, Ivy asked me out of nowhere, "Daddy, why don't I see Grandma and Grandpa anymore?" I paused. I glanced at Janelle, who was sitting on the couch folding laundry, watching with that steady expression she'd mastered. So I sat down beside Ivy, pulled her into my lap, and said, "Because sometimes, people who say they love us don't know how to be kind. And kind is more important than anything." She thought about it. Then said, "Like when someone takes your crayons without asking?" "Exactly." I smiled. "But worse." She nodded, then whispered, "I don't miss them. They said mean things when they thought I wasn't listening." That hit me like a sucker punch. Janelle's eyes were glassy. She remembers. She said later that night, curled up next to me in bed. All those times they called her loud, or said she was too much, or told her to sit still like Cassandra's imaginary kids would have. She also remembers who stood up for her. I replied. And who showed up? Life got better in quiet ways. Janelle's small business began to grow. She wrote more. Eventually published a series of essays under a pseudonym. One went viral. It was called How to Burn a Cake and a Bridge on the Same Day. We knew it would reach her parents. It wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. Ivy grew taller. Bolder. Started telling everyone she was going to be a cloud scientist princess dragon tamer. And no one corrected her. We just said, "Sounds amazing. Want to build a cardboard castle in the garage?" She said yes. We built it in a weekend. Painted it silver. Called it the Fort of No Mean People Allowed. Still stands to this day. Then one day, nearly a year after the Cassandra cake catastrophe, we got a small card in the mail. No return address. No note inside. Just a single photograph. It was Cassandra, holding a baby. On the back, she had written, "Her name is Janelle. Thought you should know." My wife stared at the card for a long time. Then she placed it gently into a drawer and said, "She's healing. In her own way." We didn't reach out. Not yet. But it no longer hurt to remember. The ghosts had stopped knocking. The mirrors were all shattered, and we were free to build windows instead. The next morning, Ivy handed me a picture she drew, stick figure versions of us, a big smiling sun, and a little heart with the word, "Safe," inside it. "Is that our house?" I asked. She nodded. "And what's the heart?" "That's our rule," she said. "We only let people in who make our hearts feel safe." I nearly lost it. Janelle kissed her head, smiled at me, and whispered, "We broke the cycle, didn't we?" I nodded. We didn't just break it. We burned it down and built something beautiful in its place.